Hello Aquarius, and welcome to your in-depth astrology forecast for March for the Sun or the Ascendant. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. This month has real excitement for you personally. Saturn, the planet of structure, and your ruling planet, your traditional ruler, is going to be roaring into your sign on the 22nd. It's going to be there through till the end of June. But also Mars, the planet of passion and desire, moves into Aquarius on the very last day to join with Saturn. And that's going to give you a real sense of purposefulness, particularly around your talents. But at the very start of this month, we have two groupings of energy. One is in the sector of your situation to do with resources, to do with your self-worth, which is the second house and governed by Pisces. The other is in your 12th house, which is to do with reflection, more psychological strands, the past, which is governed by Capricorn. Now, one of those energies in Capricorn is indeed Saturn. So Saturn's going to make the transition from the other sign it governs, which is Capricorn, into your sign on the 22nd. But also Mars is in this location. And Mars in the 12th house can stir up some mischief, quite honestly. It can make us much more conscious of the things from our past that maybe we've still got some emotional residue from. And even if you're a very placid water bearer, you might be surprised that your mood could be a little bit up and down on the back of Mars's transit. Or you can use Mars, Saturn initially, Jupiter, and also Pluto to beaver away behind the scenes, as you have been over the last couple of years, preparing for the launch of Saturn and then Mars coming into your sign later this month. Because although Saturn does rewind back into Capricorn from the end of June and emerges back into your sign on the 14th of December to be joined by the gorgeous Jupiter for the first time in 12 years on the 20th of December, and there's also going to be an amazing solar eclipse on the 14th of December for your sign particularly, you're really entering a brand new journey. So you could say that this month represents a little bit of what you've been going through quite vividly in the last couple of years, 2.5 to 2.75 years, to what you're moving towards. And it's going to become much more manifestly clear by the end of 2020. And it's all about you moving into the limelight, Aquarius. So you have gone through this profound period of Saturn, which we know can be very difficult, limiting, frustrating, punishing, but also at the very end of the day, often it teaches us something valuable. And I think what it's been teaching you, as it's been teaching me, is the depth of your associations, just who you can really rely upon, and where there may be chinks and wobbles and not quite the reliability or sincerity and that you would like. However, as this month begins in a more material way, that combination of the Sun, Mercury and Neptune in your second house is fascinating, because Mercury is actually in retrograde and has been since the 17th of February. Indeed, it's been in Pisces since the 3rd of February, leaving Aquarius on the 2nd. And its journey through the sign of Pisces, even without the retrograde, is akin to a retrograde because it's in detriment in this sign. The clarity of purpose and thought that comes from Mercury in its governorship of Gemini and also Virgo is about precision. But it's possible with Neptune also in Pisces that you have felt a little bit unsure about your sense of purposefulness around the more material aims of your situation, or perhaps you felt very compassionate and being very pulled towards helping good causes. If it is the latter, that part of your nature is going to really be heightened and enriched hugely this month from the 5th through to the 12th, when the Sun goes alongside Neptune. And if you do have a particular charitable cause that really is important to you, or it's anything to do with the environment, because the second house is essentially a Taurus type energy, so it's quite earthy, it's about foundations, then you could find yourself campaigning, raising your own vibration, but most of all you're going to have a very spiritual potential across these days. So although you can attract wealth with Sun conjunct Neptune, I do feel it can also be what you can attract in a more ephemeral way, a less tangible way, ironically, because Neptune dissipates, it's quite dreamy. But also, from the 5th through to the 12th, Uranus is going to be joined by Venus, but Venus has moved on the 5th into its home zone of Taurus, where it loves being. Uranus has been kicking over the traces in Taurus since May 2018 for 5.5 months before going back into Aries, emerging March 2019, and then sticking there since then. And so so Uranus moving through the sign of Taurus may have been a bit disruptive, especially if you're born right at the start of Aquarius, because of the square that's been caused between your Sun and also Uranus, but particularly around family or your home situation where you may have felt particularly restless. But this combination between Uranus and Venus can bring about good things, sudden changes which are very positive. So you could finally find the solution to a home-based scenario, and that opportunity to change it positively may come very quick, very unexpectedly, and you may have to make some snap decisions, or it's possible that there can be some kind of connection with someone in a very deep and personal and emotional way, or there can be a separation. It just depends on your unique circumstances. But equally, Uranus and Venus are going to be side by side from the 5th to the 12th. But concurrent to all this, on the 4th, Mercury returns to your sign because in its retrograde, it inverts back into Aquarius, where it's not been since the 2nd of February. But Mercury is exalted in our sign, Aquarius, and by the 10th it goes forward. So from the 10th through to the 15th is a wonderful period where you can be very individualistic in your thinking and move forwards in a very progressive way. But from the 16th, when Mercury returns to Pisces, you're going to be wanting more tangible and more earthly evidence of a reward for the hard work that you've been investing. But on the 9th, we do have a full moon. This full moon is in Virgo. So Virgo for you is very much about resources. It's about transformations. It's about ends and beginnings, but it's also where you're most invested, either in a practical, material way, so savings, pensions, insurances, legacies, inheritances, all this kind of stuff is ruled by the 8th house, and property. But on the other side of the heavens, you have your desire to spend money or to sustain yourself in the here and now, which is every day, 2nd house. But this full moon actually, I think, can be really positive because all that work you've been doing behind the scenes, whether it's on yourself in terms of your emotional and personal development, or it's been in terms of more tangible hard work on a business or learning something, really helping to rise to increase your consciousness, you're going to start to see real tangible evidence from the 9th of this month, and it can be very, very satisfying. Now, it has to be said that the full moon, of course, can bring emotions very much to the fore. So if you're in a situation where you're very invested and someone isn't, perhaps in a romantic situation, or you really fancy someone and they are not reciprocating, it may be that you're going to have to come to the truth of that. And Jupiter can be the truth bringer in terms of its more spiritual and philosophical dimension in its combination with Pluto, which can also be about truth and secrets and transformation. But those two are going to come together for the rest of this month, replacing the intense connection between Saturn and Pluto, which was so powerful for a lot of last year, but it was just they were 3 degrees apart, for some of that time, or obviously more, and then they came up to that point of exact connection on the 6th of January this year, and then by the minute on the 12th they came into conjunction. So I do feel that the early parts of this year may have been quite psychological for you, making you confront some harsh realities. But as Saturn started to separate from Pluto on the 18th of February, now you have Saturn travelling forwards, and then on the 22nd of this month it joins your sign. But before then we have the gorgeous vernal equinox, the first point of Aries, the first day of spring in the northern hemisphere. Obviously it's the autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere. But as far as the way the tropical zodiac works, it is the first point of the journey. And Aries energy is very much about creation. It's about initiation. It's about being much more in the moment. And for you, it's very much about your ideas. And also your ideas can meld with the comet, which is the wounded healer, Chiron. So if you've been someone who's not always had confidence in your ideas or belief systems or your education, this can be a fine time to try to find ways to improve things. But also Saturn is going to be angling up superbly to the Sun's transit through Aries in this early point, and then Saturn moves on the 22nd into Aquarius. It's going to be here through to the end of June, and as I said, coming back later in the year. But this is the first point of the big journey that's changing over the next 2 3/4 years. Of course, Saturn can be limiting, and if you've got a lot of planets in Aquarius, like I have, not just the Sun, then each of those is going to be picked up by Saturn and scrutinized. But what Saturn asks us to do is to sift out the things that don't serve our greater purpose. So that's really the message. So it's a very exciting time at the end of this month. Also, Mercury then goes into a repeat of its great sextile with Uranus, which happened in February, and that more inventive Uranus-ruled side of your nature, which is much more futuristic, less traditional. The duality of Aquarius means that Saturn gives us Aquarius people a love of routine, love of what we know, the fixed energy. Uranus is much more flamboyant, freewheeling, much more rock and roll, and the two have to coexist. And they can, as this month draws to a close, because both planets are being very positively influenced. The 24th we have a new moon, and the new moon even links in a semi-sextile to Uranus. So changing things at home, or if you start to work from home, or you make your routines more flexed and available to be a bit more spontaneous. So yeah, you might find yourself taking on more than one job or more than one roles. Some kind of freedom can come, but some kind of newer responsibility, I feel. It will be a paradox, but I think this is so. The 29th, Mercury comes out of shadow. If you have been waiting for some money to come through, or the decision on some kind of loan, or just to be paid back by someone, or just to get really clear on a creative strand that you wanted to see tangible proof of progress, it can come on the 29th. And then, wow, Mars blasts into Aquarius. Now, of course, there is a point of view that Mars in the first house can have its downside. You can see us rushing around, being a bit too impetuous, diving in where angels fear to tread, blah blah. But with Saturn alongside, that's more choked off. It's more resistant. It has to collaborate with Saturn. Now that can create a sense of frustration, but if you can really narrow your focus, and that's the real point of this process that you're going through, to narrow the focus, but bring it in from all this past reflection and a lot of very, very deep work, which may have been painful but hugely valuable, but you're now moving into the present, and you are advancing into a place where you're going to receive so much more acclaim. It's really going to blaze in your direction by the end of this year. But the process most certainly is starting now, Aquarius. It's so exciting. But what if you don't know where the planets are apart from your Sun in Aquarius? I know many of you will, and where your ascendant is, if it's different to Aquarius. But if you don't, you can click on the link beneath this video and get your character analysis, your birth chart, show where all the planets are located exactly when you were born, which can give you so much information on the type of Aquarius person you are. But also you can get a 12-month forecast and get 30% off. Or if you'd like a one-to-one consultation with me, please also click on that link. But for now, it's been a real pleasure being with you, Aquarius. Good luck and goodbye for now.